And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Punk Thompson. 100%. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
Well, hello to everyone. It is the Weighing In Podcast. My man Josh Thompson and I have made our ways back from Los Angeles, California, and Bellator 290 to our incredible studios where we get to do this the right way. I cannot wait to talk about some of the stuff we're going to talk about. All kinds of things going on. There was the UFC Fight Night Vegas. We'll talk about a couple of those fights because really. And then we're going to talk about Bellator. And we're going to talk about all that. We got Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler being coaches. Ooh, how exciting. My man, you are looking like a sniper. Oh, yeah. Look at those glasses. You're almost Steven Seagal-like.
You know, we were friends until you just said that comment right there. brother.
I love it.
We don't go that low. I mean, come on.
Dude, if they were yellow tinted, man, you are fucking Steven's baby.
You do know brother. I can really fight though, right? Just want to make sure.
I do know there's a difference there.
Yeah. I'm a little offended right now.
Well, you should be.
Speaking of people, right, that have that aura like that about them. I met Jean-Claude Van Damme this weekend. You know, and there's look, I don't like.
What a great guy. What a fantastic human being. What a special individual.
You want me to kick you in the dick right now?
Hey, John, just real quick before he continues there, can you just come down a notch in that microphone? I know we did a bunch of tests before.
Absolutely, man. Let me crank this sucker down just a little.
Your energy just came out of nowhere and took me off guard.
You know, that's the way I do it. How's that, better?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's go.
I just, there's been a handful of people that I've met across, all around the world. And I got to be honest, almost every actor, I think almost every athlete I've ever met were extremely nice. Extremely nice. Like over the top sometimes nice. Almost like, okay, this is a little weird. Kind of that's how nice they've been. Oh, yeah. And I've done charity events with people. But there's been 3 people. It was 2 yesterday, but there's been 3.
Oh, you just had, hold
well,
are we
yeah,
adding, are we adding to the Thompson list?
I've got to add one because off the top of my head, I was like, but he played for my Kansas City Chiefs. Because I met Marcus Allen. I was a huge fan of Marcus Allen because he played for the Chiefs. I met him. He was a little bit of a douche. Man. I was kind of like heartbroken. I'm like, man, you're such a good fucking, and I don't want to tell you why, but he just, he had a thing about him. He just was very, very douchey.
Okay.
Then Barry Bonds, he legitimately tried to charge some child fucking $40 for a fucking autograph and just kind of walked.
Well,
away.
yeah,
I thought that was
I can give you stories about me and Barry Bonds. Special really stories at weddings.
We were at like a charity event, and this dude legitimately asked the kid for $40 for an autograph. Yeah, you got $40. And I thought he was joking, and no, they just walked away from the kid. I was like, wow, I'd heard of this stuff happening. I'd never seen it happening though. I'd never seen it happen, and I saw it happen. I was like, wow. And then last night was Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I have...
So hold it. So what you're saying is that JCVD has made the Josh Thompson top 3 douchebag award list.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun. I've met a lot of professional athletes, and I've met a lot of actors and actresses.
So have I.
It was the strangest thing to me, John. I walked up and I saw him, and we were chatting with some other people, and I reached across and I go, hey man, let's get a picture with you and you get a chance. Didn't say one word. He just grabbed my phone out of my hand, and he couldn't figure out how to use this.
Just big brother.
Couldn't figure out how to use the settings. So whoever was with him, his assistant or somebody, like got it on portrait and reversed the camera and all this stuff. And then he takes the picture and handed it back to me. So weird. Didn't say anything. Didn't say one word. Didn't say hi. Didn't say sure. Didn't say anything. Just a very strange. Didn't smile either. It was a very awkward situation. And I was like, all right, you're one of those guys. I get it. You're one of those guys. Now I've met Steven Seagal.
Hold it. What you should have done. Oh, I know Steven very well. What you should have done is you should have looked at him, taken the picture, looked at him, and gone, erase.
So weird to me, man. I'm like, I think a lot of people forget especially the ones that are like that. They forget that your grave is still 6 feet deep, just like mine, motherfucker. Like, that's the thing. We still put our pants on one leg at a time. Your shit still stinks.
Shit smells the same,
it all stinks. It all stinks.
It still stinks.
It just was a very weird situation. My dad was a big fan of Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. My dad used to love and eat up those movies, man. He loved them.
Oh, really?
And so meeting after all these years of have met Steven Seagal, meeting Jean-Claude Van Damme last night. And I had seen him before in an event. I think it was a UFC event a long time ago. I had met him before there, but just in passing. And I never really like to get pictures with people. I don't want to bother them. I was like, you know what? He was there. He was sitting front row at the event. I was walking past, and we were in a group of people talking. I was talking with Chuck. I was talking with Dan, and he was there. And so we were all kind of chatting. And I was like, I just asked him real quick. Anyways, but he's made my list, man. But I will tell you this. I want to end this on the positive note. Let's positive note is not about him or not about anything. It was Dean, the hands down, 3 of the nicest people I've ever met, though. 3 of them. Marshall Falk being probably number 1. Hands
Marshall
down,
Falk is super nice.
That guy, I've done several
used to live near me.
Really, you must be balling, bro. You must be balling.
No, I wasn't balling. I was living in the old section. He went to the new section, and my son actually used to deliver. My son worked at this Italian restaurant, and Marshall Falk always ordered food from there, and my son delivered it to him. And Marshall Falk was always.
He was super nice. I've done 3, maybe 4 golf charity events with him, and every single time at the end you have like a banquet at the end, and he will go from table to table and take indivisible pictures with every single person, and then he'll take a group photo if they want a picture. He just says, hey, I'm here, just want to let you guys know, I want to say hi. He's done that at it wasn't like just the one time where they maybe paid him a lot of money to come. No, he does it at every single event that I've ever been around, and he will sit and talk to you. He will sit and share stories with you. He takes his time with every single person. Doesn't matter if you're 80 or if you're 11 or 12 years old. He's there he's rocking it, man. Hands down. Probably. And then the other 2 is, it was Jenna and Channing Tatum when Jenna and Channing were together. And Channing was a real good guy, but Jenna, fantastic. I mean, I know they've now separated and she's married with someone else. But anyways, fantastic. 2 fantastic people. Absolutely fantastic people. Just fun to be around. Never smile and laugh with everyone. Great people.
There's a lot of good ones.
There is.
There really is.
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot of good ones. And here's the thing. I don't know. I'm not saying this about your current addition to the DB list, but I've known him and everybody. He's a douchebag, man. Who's
this?
But
okay.
Yeah, just not a good human being. But there are so many, Chris Pratt.
Chris is amazing.
Talking about something. I said, Chris, man, my wife wanted to meet Chris. I said, so I come over, hey, Chris, I need to introduce you to my wife, Elena. Boom, boom. He sat there talking with my wife for 45 minutes. Right? It's like, dude, you can stop anytime you want. It was like, hello, nice to meet you. That would have sufficed. But no, man. And guys like him, they're out there.
I've been out there.
I have my Steven Seagal stories. I've had a bunch of those, and I've known Steven for a while. And my biggest problem with Steven is, I don't know how I say this. Steven used to hurt stomach. Yeah. Well, Gene LaBelle he's like my, almost like my second dad. And I've known Gene forever, and Gene recently passed. And look, Gene is an icon, and Gene was a part of the stunt union forever. He was a stunt coordinator, did all that stuff. And the whole thing that happened with him and Steven on one of the sets, where Gene was trying to explain to him that, hey, I think you could use a chokehold in this and it would look good. And he says, chokehold, no one could choke me. Gene, just being who he was, well, I'll choke you where you stand.
I love this.
Seagal challenged him to it, and he proved that he could do that, and he choked him unconscious. Well, then, Steven was upset and he actually sued Gene over the whole thing. And the whole thing that came about from it was that in the end, Gene could not talk about the situation. So if you ever asked Gene about Steven Seagal, it was, Steven Seagal is a fine actor and a fine actor and a wonderful martial artist. And it's all he would say. He goes, Steven Seagal is a fine actor and a wonderful martial artist.
Wasn't that movie scripted around him as Brad Pitt and the Quentin Tarantino movie, something in Hollywood something?
Yes. Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
right?
like
where he beats up Brad Pitt.
The Brad Pitt character was scripted after.
Wow.
That's who Quentin Tarantino had.
That's awesome.
And so a lot like he was supposedly, possibly involved with a murder and stuff. Well, Gene was arrested for murder at one point.
Wow.
It wasn't true that he was acquitted of it and stuff. But yeah, he had all kinds of. Gene was. You talk about stories, man. He has some great ones and stuff. But Steven Seagal does have one of my Randy Couture stories that I hate to say, but I told Randy, I said, do you realize that you have created a situation where forever, I will have to say Steven Seagal was right. And that was when Leona Machida fought Randy at UFC 129 and kicked him with that front kick and kicked him in the, knocked his teeth out basically. And because Seagal in the back before, came to me, and he would, oh, John, how are you? I said, nice to see you, Steven, right? We're talking. And he says, did you see what? And he was talking about Anderson Silva did to Vitor Belfort. And he was trying to take credit that he taught Anderson that kick. And I'm like, stop. Right. And it's, and it's like, and then he goes, well, you watch. He goes, Lyoto-san is going to do the same thing. He calls him Lyoto-san. Lyoto-san is going to do the same thing Randy Couture tonight. I said, well, I'll tell you what. You know what? That was a nice kick by Anderson and everything, but I don't think that's happening tonight. God damn it. As soon as it happened, he was sitting right behind me because I was on the other side of the counter, and he's grabbing me going, I told you. And I was like, motherfucker.
Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story about Steven Seagal. So DC gets done fighting at one of his fights. The next day we go, and he says that Master Seagal has summoned me to his room. So we all go to the what's it called, the Mandarin Orient hotel on the Strip.
Oh yeah.
And oh my gosh, I knew that Daniel Cormier was a fucking ham, but he fucking cheeses this thing up. Yeah, Sensei Seagal, Master Seagal has called me. He's calling his assistant. He's just asking him, yeah, so I've been summoned by Master Seagal. Summoned. And then sends his assistant down to get him from the lobby. DC is just fucking eating this shit up. He's like, oh, you guys are just jealous that I'm being summoned by Sensei Seagal, Master Seagal. I was like, oh my God. Daniel, you are such.
That's the word I'm thinking of. I'm jealous.
Man.
You're right. That's the exact.
Daniel. He loves that shit though. Daniel Cormier loves that shit.
Good. Well, dude, he loves professional wrestling. He loves the acting stuff. That's all right.
Another story with I went after one of our shows with Jay Glazer, and Jay's really good friends with Chris Pratt. And went and had dinner with Chris Pratt and all the guys from Emerging Vets and Players.
Chris works out at Jay's
he does.
gym.
Yep, I've been out there for some of the Emerging Vets and Players gatherings, and Chris is there, and some other actors and actresses are there as well as Olympians and athletes and football players. Yeah, tons of celebrities and tons of people that are just going through some hard times too. Were there for the Emerging Vets and Players, but Chris Pratt he's at the top of the list too. He's right. I gotta hold him up there, right there with Channing and Jenna and
he's
super great guy. I've had dinner with him a couple times, twice now, and really nice guy. Talks to everyone. Really gets to in-depth conversations, like you said with Miss McCarthy. Is that he'll sit and talk. You're like, wow, like I wasn't expecting that, and that's what you expect from real people, and it makes it easy to be around others. All right, well, hey, you know what? Before we get started, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Now, if you guys paid attention to us all the week during the Bellator event, we dropped about 15 shows. They're short shows, but we dropped them on the main channel. So you guys got to hit that bell to get those notifications for when we drop new content. I mean, there was about, Dave, how many shows do you think we dropped? Probably about eight.
Well, I wouldn't call them shows. I'd call them interviews. But we dropped at least 5 interviews. There's a couple more still to go. And then we dropped a live show. We
Live
did drop
feed.
a live show. So
Yeah.
we did a live feed as well.
So, I mean, like, if we did the live show, we talked about the fights a little bit. We'll give you a little bit more of a recap. We'll talk more about the behind-the-scenes stuff, I think, for this show on the Bellator, because we did kind of do the breakdown last night on the live show, so I don't want to feel redundant and repeat ourselves. But make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. That helps with the algorithm, and then also hit the bell. Also, go to WayneInMerch.com, pick up one of our hoodies, some of our long sleeve. John is wearing one of our hoodie designs there, as you guys can see, which is an awesome shirt. And the material and the quality of the product is a lot nicer. A lot nicer, you guys, these days. We were using other companies till we got on our feet, and the quality wasn't as good. The shirts weren't as good, but guess what? The new ones are. And we're stoked to be working with this company. So we want to thank you guys for supporting us. John, let's go ahead and get started on Bellator 290, man. That happened in LA. First show on CBS. And I did get some rough numbers. Did about 950,000 views, but that was the average. So that means that they haven't given out the peak numbers and the low numbers at some point.
Probably peaked somewhere around
1.3.
1.1.
I'd say 1.2. I think
think
1.2,
that?
1.3 probably.
Okay.
I'm thinking probably. Yeah, I think right around the Fedor fight, it probably peaked, or towards the end of Johnny Eblin's fight, probably peaked.
Yeah. Should have peaked during the damn Sabah Homasi versus.
It might have peaked probably towards that beginning of that second round. Who knows? I mean, they said that it was around the 10 o'clock mark that it peaked. So,
10
yeah,
o'clock
10 o'clock
Eastern.
Eastern. That is correct. Yes. All right. Well, hey, let's go ahead and jump into this. John, we talked about the main event yesterday, Ryan Bader versus Fedor in his retirement fight. But for me, I feel like I need to talk more about Fedor the week of. Smiling, more so than normal. Understanding, I think, that this was kind of time to come to a close. Understanding, when we talked to him in the fighter meetings, the just the pressure that he doesn't handle, that the fight week pressure, just the preparation for it is not as fun as it used to be. He gets more in the growth of watching his students, or the people that he works with, Nemkov, Moldavsky, Tokov, the other Tokov. He gets more pleasure and more enjoyment out of seeing their growth and them winning titles, or them being considered for titles. You know, Tokov came up a little short against Johnny Eblin, but man, it was a good fight, especially in those first 3 rounds, first 3 rounds. It was a good fight, and then Johnny started to take over. But he gets that more growth. He loves that more so right now than trying to focus on himself. And it was time, and he knew it was time.
Yeah, and you know, Josh, it all comes down to this: 46 years of age. 46 years of age. You know, Father Time takes things away from. I'm the first one to look. At one time, I was a good athlete. I'm the worst athlete in the world now. Okay, it's just when you hit numbers, and I can tell you, I remember. You know, when I, was doing something, and I remember when I turned 45 is when injuries did not go away. You know, I always stayed hurt from, rolling or whatever I was doing. And it was like, God damn. Then when I was 50, everything hurt as far as if I sparred or did. That's when I stopped sparring, basically. So that's it. I'm done. Got tired of getting hit in the fucking face, and it started to really hurt.
You're obviously a slow learner. 50 years old. What the fuck is wrong with you? And they call me the dumb one. Really?
Yeah. Well, and okay, here's the truth, and you know it's true, is sparring's fun when you're making guys miss.
When you're old, you're not making a miss. You're the target. Your target.
That's the whole
target
thing.
practice.
Dude, they're never missing. You're getting hit by everything. Okay, because you see it coming, and by the time your body reacts, it's already hit you, and the second one's coming. And it's like, it's just, you cannot maintain it. And Fedor is, a guy that lived off of speed and explosiveness, and Father Time takes it away. I looked at this fight going in, and you and I talked about it, and I gave Fedor very little chance of winning. I thought, if he's going to win, it's going to be a blitz in the first minute, maybe minute 30, and that's, if it goes past that ain't going to happen. And you gave him as much as, well, he can make it to the end of the round, and maybe after a minute's rest, he'll have 30 to 45 seconds of that blitz again. You know, look, Ryan Bader is as a heavyweight. I've said it many times, and I've said it to Ryan Bader. You've been there. I said, dude, you need to stay at heavyweight. You are a much better fighter at heavyweight than you are at light heavyweight, and he is, and he showed it. You know, but he showed it against a guy that he should have beaten, and he did beat him. The one thing that I want to say out of all this, look, that whole thing was set up as that farewell to Fedor, and that's great. He deserves it. You have got to, if you didn't like Ryan Bader before, if you don't like him now, you're an idiot. Because, man, I'll tell you what, you talk about a guy who handled being the villain as the champion. He handled being the villain in this. He handled everything as far as, you know, all the media and everything. And he handled it with such class. He stood there, you know, applauding Fedor the whole time, talking Fedor up and how special he was. He showed what kind of person he is that you and I both know. He's a special dude, and he's absolutely got a heart of gold. And, you know, he just showed what kind of classy athlete he is.
John, you brought up, you know, when you were sparring at 50 years old and everything hurt, and here he is at 46, still in there doing it. You know, was fighting for
the
a
best
title.
Guys out there,
fighting for a title, and
crazy.
I know it didn't go his way, but you had brought up like, oh, when I was, you know, when I hit 40, like I'm not an athlete anymore, and I'm like, there's things in life, right, that pre-40, I used to stand on top of a chair to like reach things, but now I get up on a chair and I like start looking down, going, fuck, I could fall and break a hip, like it's. Anything after 40, it's the way you get down out of a chair. And when you're 40 years old, when you're under 40, you would jump down. Over 40, one hand on the wall, one hand on the chair, and then you step down one leg at a time. Things just change. I was cleaning out my gutters last summer at the house, and I'm cleaning it out, and I'm thinking, I felt like off balance, like I was going to fall off the roof at any moment, any time. I remember rollerblading back in like the 80s on top of the high school gym roof and jumping from building to building. Now I'm afraid just to walk on the roof because it feels like I'm going to fall. The stability is not the same. Your body just doesn't react.
No.
The things, your depth perception is not the same. All of these, look at, I'm wearing fucking glasses now. You know what I mean? Like all of these things change and they make a huge difference. And to be competing at a high level, say what you want. I mean, he just knocked out Tim Johnson. You know, but the fight before this, and he's had finishes in all of his fights up until since he lost to Ryan Bader the first time. So, and he's finished everyone after that, and then he's come in, and now he's got a loss, and he walked off into the sunset. Maybe not the way that he was hoping, but it was there. Yeah.
Let's be honest, and it's part of the sport of MMA and boxing, combat sports. Look, fairy tale endings are just not part of our sports. You know, let's just be honest. It's, you know, and I don't care who it is. You know, you take a look at all of the guys, all of them that were standing inside of that cage last night for Fedor, and you had some incredible fighters in there. Okay, let's take a look at that. All right. Dan Henderson, his last fight, what happened? Lost. Mark Coleman, lost. Randy Couture, lost. Frank Shamrock, lost. Matt Hughes, lost. Josh Barnett, lost.
Chuck Liddell,
lost. Chael Sonnen, lost. Rampage Jackson, lost.
Hoist lost.
You know, you just look and
Hoist
you go,
Hoist
what's
his
that?
last one?
No, his last one he didn't
Shamrock.
lose, so that's why I didn't pick him out.
He fought Ken, right?
Huh?
Didn't he fight Ken? Yeah,
he won.
That's right.
He won. Yeah. But I mean, it's not the norm to, you know, go out as, you know, the guy that, you know, I go out on a win. Fighting, when a guy wins, he just thinks he can do it again too. And man, it's, you know, it's a harsh reality, and it's a mean mistress as far as the way, you know, it goes, but it usually doesn't end with, you know, the pretty picture. But that's a pretty good picture.
That's a great
right there.
picture right there. You know, that's a great picture. And there was a ton of other fighters that were there, but these are the ones that were able to come up into the cage. Just it's honestly, like I said last night on the broadcast, He brought something to the sport when we needed him the most. We needed somebody to represent the sport in class, with class, I should say. And that's exactly what he did. He brought humbleness, dynamic fights, though, that went along with his humbleness, and explosive submissions, explosive knockouts, fast twitch muscles, left himself out of position. He was also not invincible, and I was listening to
unbelievable
comebacks. So, like, that's exactly what it was. I was listening to Luke Thomas and BC, and they brought up a good point. It wasn't like he was invincible. No, he took some damage.
No.
Remember the Fajita fight? He got rocked with the first combination.
Dude, he was on stanky legs, man, just trying to hold on to Fujita.
And they come back. He comes back and gets the finish. He had some great fights with the Randleman, the suplex.
What about the Kevin Randleman? Oh, come on.
He gets suplexed on his head.
That freaking just unbelievable.
I mean, literally, like there's the picture. I don't know if you can pull this up, Dave, but there's a picture of Kevin Randleman throwing him, and his feet are vertical with the ground, or parallel with the ground.
Yep.
And Fedor's feet are up in the air, vertical with the ground, directly above. Yeah. Where both of them, they're there. You
look at the third picture right there.
Look at that. They're both up in the air.
And they're both up in the air, but only one's in a position you go, I don't want to be that guy.
And so,
and Fedor is going down in a way you don't want to be.
It wasn't as if he was invincible. Like there's certain guys, you look at certain, I'm going to throw these names out, is Floyd Mayweather. It seemed like he was invincible, never been dropped in his career, although he was. Against Zab Judah, his glove hit the ground. It should have been a drop, a knockdown.
And he also,
there was one other guy.
He got nailed by Sugar Shane Mosley.
Yeah,
too.
But I don't know if he got sat down.
He got nailed by
I
him.
think the ropes kept him up in that one.
An early fight he had. That guy had him.
I'm trying to remember. Well, Zab Judah had him wobbled, and he put his glove down, and they didn't count it as a knockdown. But him and then John Jones. He's had some good fights. Only towards the end of his 205 were the fights kind of close. The rest of the fights, he dominated pretty much all of those fights.
But and again, but you take a look, and this is where we talk about, man, when you're the champion, you're the target. Everybody wants that shot at you, because you hold on to that one thing that is going to establish the start of their legacy, and can they get past you? And it's tough to figure out and to find the motivation after a while, especially for as long as John did it. And so in the end, at light heavyweight, I don't think his motivation was high. I think he's going to have a lot more motivation in this next fight. I think you're going to see, a motivated John Jones, which that's not a good thing for his opponents, because the guy, fight IQ and everything, there's no one that's better.
No. I don't think there is. There's a couple guys that are up there, but they haven't fought the level of opponents that he's fought.
Yep.
Over the
time period too.
And I look at Fedor. Fedor's got he's fought the level of opponents all the way across the board. Kevin Randleman. He's fought Coleman twice when Coleman was in his prime, I'd say. Nogueira 3 times, but 2 times with the win. He didn't lose to him the third time, or whatever it was the second time.
Second time ended in no contest based upon a head cut.
All of these things, but he's fought Tim Sylvia right after he came off the UFC. He fought Andrei Arlovsky out of the UFC after being champions, both of those guys. Like, he's fought the who's who, and he fought them when they were in their prime, and he knocked them out. It's pretty simple, man. And I said it on the broadcast. I think I may get some flack, because they're my boys. Oh, man, you sold your boys out when I talked about Kane and DC. But they didn't together. If I pull up their records, they're like 14-2 or 14-3, and then the other one's 14 or 17-3 or something like that. But they have a total combined record of what Fedor's record is over that period of time. What's DC? DC's record is...
First off, you didn't sell them out. Here's the difference, and you tell me if I'm wrong. But I will say this:
22-3.
Daniel was a fantastic fighter. Daniel, you take a look at
14-3.
He always said, and so this is why I'm going to eliminate him out of the equation. He always said, "I can't beat Kane."
No.
Did he not?
I can tell you he couldn't have beat Kane.
Okay. I can't.
And I love DC, man. So I love him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that takes nothing. I actually appreciate the honesty of DC in that situation.
John,
so then you take Kane.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know, but I'm saying like it was just to see the Kane of the prime Kane.
Yes. And this is the difference. Man. Prime Kane, and this is where people know. If Dave, go and show his record as far as his earlier fights. Right when he was, you can take it right around that Ben Rothwell, okay, the UFC 99, UFC 104, UFC 110, UFC 121. That moment in time, those from basically 09 to 2010, those 2 years. Cain Velasquez was as good as anybody ever was as a mixed martial arts fighter. I think in those years, Cain could have beaten Fedor. But you take a look, he had 2 years of time that he was that special of a guy.
Yeah.
Fedor, you take a look and you look at all the fights that he had in Pride. 2003 to 2007 as the champion, and then Pride was sold, so that's where the championship ended. And then he continued on because it was with Affliction with Whamma and became the champion there, beating, as you said, Tim Sylvia and then Arlovsky. And you just look at the time period and how long he did it. That's what makes him special, because I'm going to be honest, there was that moment in time when Velasquez is as good as you could get as far as a heavyweight fighter. He just wasn't able to carry that for the amount of time that Fedor was.
I also look too that his Czech Congo fight was his coming out party, because he got dropped in that fight twice in the first round, and then to start off the second round he got dropped again, and then he grinded it out and got the win. And it wasn't the most pretty performance, but I think that's when he realized, oh shit, I'm human. Like Cain he had been sparring with.
It's possible I could be
sparring with Paul Bonatello. He'd been sparring with Mike Kyle. He'd been sparring with DC. He'd been sparring with world class guys. LeVar Johnson. I mean, there was guys that came in. They were all bigger than him, except for DC. But they were all bigger than him, and he was flinging them around. He was out hustling them. He'd spar 3 rounds with Mike Kyle. Mike Kyle would have to get out because he was exhausted. He'd bring in Paul Bonatello. He'd do 3 rounds with him. Then he'd do 2 more rounds with DC of just touch because DC was just getting better with his hands and stuff at the time. Like Mike Van Arsdale. I mean, just like those guys, like he would just be out hustling them, outworking them, working on his striking. He got better and progressively better. But that week before he was supposed to fight Junior Dos Santos, he tore his knee. And he just, in his mind, I think he was kind of already beat going in there. Like, I'm fighting this guy on Fox. So. And the UFC sweetened the deal so well, he had no choice but to take that fight. He had no choice. Yeah. He is still living off the amount of money he made from that fight. Still. That's how much money he made just from that one fight. And it was like 19 seconds or something. But then
64 seconds.
And so, but then after that, he goes on a run again. He beats Antonio Silva. He fights Junior, beats Junior. And those 2 fights, the knockout, but then the next 2 fights with Junior, I think honestly, it ruined both their careers. They were never the same fighters after both of those guys fought. Never. They just they
took so much out of each other.
They were the Josh Thompson, Gilbert Melendez. That trilogy was like that. Yeah. It was just we destroyed ourselves. But you need that nemesis in your life if you're going to be a fighter to really carry favor with the fans. Like, you need someone to challenge you. I think that's why John's a great fighter, but he's never had that guy. He had it with DC. And that's when I feel like the star power was high, but it was a one-sided thing. It was one-sided, And then I'm not, like I said, I'm not taking jabs at my boy, man. I love D, and D is a hard worker. DC, people can make fun of his belly or the way he's, but dude, that guy is a fucking dog. He works his ass off every single day in the gym. He'd be at home working his ass off. He'll be, and he's never stopped being a father. That's the other thing I loved about DC. Still at every one of his son's games, still at his daughter's gymnastics, still that guy's everywhere. And then coaching his kids on the weekend. Not just his kids, but other people's kids. Yeah. But with Cain, he just, after that third Junior fight, he was just plagued with injuries, plagued with all these things during those times because he was training so hard and so focused on Junior. Just knew that Junior was going to come back. And but like you said, John, that period, I'm not even prepared to say that he would have beat Fedor during that time, only because I knew Cane's weaknesses, and his weakness was his jiu-jitsu. If you go back and watch the I think it was the last Junior fight. Slam and punches. I think it was the last Junior fight is when he almost locked him into that guillotine. It might have been the second one. He almost had him at the end. And I know Cane was tired, but Cane's only defense was to flop to his back and just scramble from there. Because the submission game, him and DC didn't really ever train it. They were just such good wrestlers and they had such good cardio. They never really had to worry about people trying to take them down because they knew in the heavyweight division there's not a lot of good wrestlers. There wasn't. It wasn't until he fought Fabricio and he got so gassed in Mexico City because of the altitude that he realized, shit, I have to know. You have to learn how to defend submissions, even when you're tired. And it's hard to learn that type of defense against someone who's world class like Fabricio. You know what I mean? Anybody else you could have probably got out of that with, but not Fabricio. Yeah. It's the wrong guy. When you're tired, exhausted, shoot, your head gets in there. It's done. It's over. And he just never was the same after he lost the title. Just the desire, I think, it was almost like a sense of relief. Like, okay, I'm done right now. I need a break, go hard, do all these things. But even then, I still think that would have been the fight for me, in my mind, if I was to think of a fight that we never got to see, would have been Cane and Fedor. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Cane and Fedor or Brock and Fedor, because the UFC, the UFC believed in Brock Lesnar. So Dana believed in Brock so much because of the size and everything. I'll never forget when Brock was going to fight
Cane.
Cane.
And Dana.
And man, Dana is talking to me and I said, oh, Cain Velasquez is going to destroy Brock Lesnar. And he looked at me like I was the dumbest motherfucker on the face of the planet. He looked at me, he goes, are you fucking crazy? Yeah. He goes, how? He goes, Brock Lesnar. No, he didn't. Brock Lesnar was a Division I NC2A champion. Cane was never. I go, dude, it's not a fucking wrestling match. Great. I go, and when you're talking about if they did wrestle, it would be fucking close. And it's like, I said, Brock has got one chance. I go, one chance at all. I go, and it ain't going to happen. And so after that fight, he looked at me and I was like, duh. Right. And it was like, hey, and I think that was the fight that they wanted when they were, Dana says, I know that he came out in the media and said, oh, I never thought Fedor was any good. Dana, why don't you tell everyone how much you were going to pay Fedor to fight in the UFC if he was no good? Because it wasn't about the money as far as for Fedor. The UFC offered him a shit ton of money. Now, other people paid him a shit ton. Bellator paid him a shit ton. Let's just be honest. But Dana wanted to put that Brock Lesnar-Fedor fight together. And if Fedor would have signed, that was going to be his first fight, was against Brock. And Fedor would have eaten Brock up at that point. At that point, even back
if you
then,
look at Brock Lesnar, and I'm a fan of Brock Lesnar. I love the publicity he brought to the sport. I'm actually very grateful for that. As a fighter who's not a big guy, a guy who just I had a long career, but I never developed that star power. There was moments in my career where I had some moments that were generating star power, but it just never hit that level ever. And he brought a lot of the eyeballs to the sport, just like he does in the WWE. And so, but there was never a moment that he enjoyed or liked being hit. And when he did get hit, John, he would turn away and cover up and run to the fence. And I've seen top level wrestlers, some of my friends that thought they were going to be great fighters. In the gym, they were fucking animals. But in a real fight, I've seen guys literally run back to the corner in the fetal position and shell up until the ref stopped it. I've seen it with my own eyes.
And that look, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's okay. But if you're going to be a professional fighter, you have to become friends with being hit. It is just part of what it is. And if you can't, and the fight with, Brock tried at times, I know Eric Paulson was, going and doing his camps, and I knew guys that were at his camps. I knew guys that went there as sparring partners, and I talked to them as that was going on, and they said, yeah, it was first don't do this, now don't do that, now, and then they go, finally got to don't hit Brock, and it was like, you can't do that, and they go, yeah, well, that's what's going on. And it's like, okay, but that's okay. Yeah.
All right, well, hey, let's run through the next fight. Sorry, that's only fight number 1. We got to get moving, John. We got to get moving.
Look at Johnny Eblen put on a masterful performance against a really good fighter in Anatoly Tokov. Anatoly Tokov, I thought the first round was close. Tokov really was doing well in the second round. A lot of people did not see that elbow strike that Eblen threw that hit Tokov in the side of the head that put him down. That was the difference maker for me in the why I gave the round to Eblen. And from that point, it was the pace and the pressure of Eblen just started to wear Tokov down.
Yeah.
And he wasn't able to match
we talked
it.
to some of the judges afterwards, and they were saying, like, we didn't see it from our angle. So I ruled it for Tokov. And I saw the elbow.
I don't blame him.
The elbow hit him right across the temple. He lost his balance, face down, but then he popped back up. He got back into the scramble and all that.
Yeah,
he was hurt. But Johnny Eblen right now, I just feel like he's firing on all cylinders. He's really motivated he's fighting with a chip on his shoulder because no one gave any love. That one comment that Gegard made, I don't even know who this guy is. That really changed, I think, his mindset.
That got his attention.
And he still brings it up to this day. When I talk to him, he's like, he's like, all these guys are going to know who I am by the time I'm done. And I'm like, you're on the right track right now, man. But let's talk about something else. I want to spruce up the division. Luke Rockhold was there in the audience, and I know there's been conversations with him and Scott Coker. I know, and I also know that he wants to box, which Coker and Showtime Sports and everyone else, or Showtime Boxing, is all 100% okay with. And he can still fight MMA. Now, there's fights to be made with Luke. Now, I'm not saying I want to see Luke fight all these young killers, but I do want to see him fight Gegard. I do want to see him.
That's the one. Gegard was there too.
I didn't see him, but I did see that he was there.
Yeah, Gegard was there, and they were kind of like, this would be good. And it would be
fantastic.
They never faced off when they were both in the UFC, and it would be a great
different weight
matchup,
classes. Strikeforce, remember? Because he was the champ at 205.
Well, when they were in Strikeforce, Gegard was fighting at light heavyweight, which is crazy.
He's tiny.
He was doing it, and Luke was the middleweight champion. When Luke was actually, I think, bigger than
not a little bit either, a lot bigger. Yeah. But there's fights to be made there. I'd like to see Fabian Edwards and Luke Rockhold. I think that'd be a fun fight.
I think that'd be a really good fight.
And then you put him also too with again
Vancinas.
Him and Vancinas would be fireworks. Luke and Vancinas would be fireworks. But I think that Vancinas needs one more fight. One more fight before he gets to Johnny Eblen. He needs to get back in the rhythm of things. He's got to get that timing down, that fight timing down. But Johnny's like, look, I'll fight whoever. Doesn't matter. But I look at the guy that's on the roster though. But he's also his teammate is Dalton Rasta. Dalton Rasta he's making big gains, making big jumps, and I don't know, man. Brendan Ward called him out at 185. I'm like, that was kind of threw me off.
And I did. Well, it did. I as soon as he said Hercules, I was like, "You're talking about Dalton Rasta," and I was like, "He's a middleweight. You're fighting at welterweight. What are you talking about?" Up. And so I kind of just let it go. Well, Brennan had fought earlier on in his career when he first started with Bellator. He was a middleweight. He fought Alexander Shlemenko for the championship. I reffed that fight as a middleweight. But I was like, but you're fighting a welterweight. What are you doing? And I was like, I kind of just let it go. But I was like, that's an interesting call out.
Yeah. Well, he won,
and not an easy one.
Shot. Now he won that fight. I'm like, you can't get a title shot off of Sabah, But Sabah's he was ranked. Sabah's ranked number 6 or something like that. I think. Scroll up. There we go. Sabah was ranked number 8. I mean, but I could see him maybe fighting. Like if you put him maybe against like Douglas Lima after Lima's next fight.
Well, Lima moved up to middleweight.
How about a Yamauchi fight or a Korshkov fight? Did he bring up Korshkov? He said he wanted that fight back, right?
No, that was
Homasi. That's okay. So Homasi wanted that fight back. But I mean, I'm down, man. I think if you have that Brennan Ward fight Andre Korshkov, or you have him fight Yamauchi, that'd be a fun fight, man. I'd like to see him fight Lima too, but I know Lima's got a fight coming up at 85.
I'm sorry. The embarrassing thing that I see here in this welterweight picture for Bellator, from the championship down
the
to
media,
10.
blame them.
Where's Lorenz Larkin?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the other thing. Kyle Crushman just lost to Jalil Willis, and he's still ranked. He's still ranked ahead of him.
I know.
That was their last fights. How can you be ranked below somebody or higher than them?
How do you beat someone and beat them soundly?
Yeah, and then you're ranked below them. That's so weird to me. Yeah. Larkin. Well, I think because Larkin's inactivity, correct? And his last opponent was.
Well, his last opponent was Brahmov again because they had the no
so it's
contest.
the inactivity, and then I think then Brahmov's not ranked either. He won't be ranked now either. All right, next fight. Yeah.
Well, we talked about Brennan Ward there, him against Homasi. They did start it off. You got to give it up for both guys. Homasi came out, he was throwing giant power shots, which, and he was all the, and I love the attempts, and I love some of them were actually connecting. He had the switch knees, the flying knees he was throwing, but it takes a ton of energy, Josh. You know it. And the one thing that we know about Sabah, fast twitch muscle fiber athlete who has got power, he's got speed, but when it comes to being able to maintain that conditioning, it starts to taper off fast. We saw it against, he hurt Paul Daly, hurt him badly. Only the second guy I ever saw really hurt Paul Daly. And couldn't finish him. Burned through that energy. Basically tired himself out. He got tired against Brennan Ward. Yeah. It was as much fatigue as far as what was affecting him as it was the punches or kicks from Brennan.
What we got to talk about is Brennan Ward, and his fight IQ is on point when he is sober. Because when we talked to him in this week, he said, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to wrestle him a little bit. I understand that he slows down as the fight goes on if you make him work. And that's exactly what he did. He came out and he shot right away. And then he scrambled. He wasn't focused on getting the takedown. He was focused on making him work.
And he said, he says, I know they want me to get into a firefight. He goes, and I will.
Yes.
But I'm going to get into the firefight. I'm going to get into the firefight when I decide it's time to get in the firefight. I can't do that with him at the beginning. He's got too much power.
Smart. He's got a lot of knowledge, and he knows how to fight, and he's got the dog in him to do it. He just needs to make sure that he continues to stay clean and grow and become better, because he is that fight, like the way he mixed it up, he understood that, I'm boxing, and he threw that head kick at the end. That shit came out of nowhere, John. I was like, beautifully timed. And I'm going to throw a little jab at myself, but it was, it reminded me of, because Sabah threw a little back fist, like a little backhand, like when I got knocked out by Eves. He threw the same thing, and the kick came right after he missed. Boom. The fucking kick came and landed right flush and sat him to his butt. I mean, it was just perfectly timed, perfectly executed, great stuff by him. But it was a great fight. Sabah had his moments for sure. He dropped him 2 times with those leg kicks, swept him right off of his feet. Just a fantastic. It was exactly what, and John, it was exactly what we needed going into that that title fight, because that's why they put him on there. But there was a lot of technique. They didn't just stand and bang and make it sloppy. There was a lot of technique. Leg kicks, cat kiss, wrestling.
It wasn't a barroom brawl. There was a ton of technique.
I was very happy.
They both showed a lot of elements of mixed martial arts, and that's what made it such a good fight.
Yep. I'm not going to run through all these prelims, but give me a fight on here that you really want to talk about on the prelims.
If I'm going to talk about a fight on the prelims, I think we already talked about Lorenz Larkin. We did, with his elbow when we did that live thing. Unbelievable elbow. But if I'm going to say, I want to give, props. We gave props to Chris Gonzalez. Fantastic. Henry Corrales fighting Ahmed Magomedov. Magomedov undefeated, outstanding. Henry Corrales stuck to a game plan. executed that game plan and took apart a really good fighter and got that win based upon sticking to a game plan. Systematically used that low calf kick throughout the fight to create problems for Magomedov. Magomedov, in the end, unable to get the takedown. And you look, if there is a blueprint on how to beat Henry Corrales, it is take him off of his feet and use ground and pound. He can't get back up. He's not dangerous once he's on the ground. You're going to get your win. How many guys have done that?
Yep.
Right? Well, he goes to fight ready with Henry Corrales. I'm sorry, with Henry Cejudo and Angel Cejudo. And look at what's happening, man. Dude, he had some moments. His defensive wrestling was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I
Great
agree.
performance.
What I want to see more out of Henry, though, is, and I understand why, is when you know you're fighting someone who wants to wrestle you and take you down, you try to keep it to a 1-2 shot.
Yep.
Is that when he lands clean, though, you got to throw the third no matter what. You got to throw it. And he had moments where he landed a clean, hard shot, but then he just stuck to the 1-2, just to the 1-2, or the right hand, left hook, or the left hook, right hand, or the 1-2. It was, you've got to, when you feel it land clean.
Uppercut, left hook.
When you feel it land clean, you got to throw the third, no matter what. Even if you don't think it's going to land, throw it, because 9 times out of 10, it does land. It does. And so you got to throw it. And he could have potentially had moments where he could have maybe got him out of there. Who knows? You never know. This is the fight game. But I think for fans at home, you're like, man, just throw the third. I want to see this potentially get even better. And so Henry's got to get out of that a little bit, but I understand why he did it for this fight. All right, let's go. We're going to go into the UFC now. We're going to talk. Look, there's only a couple fights out of the UFC we're going to talk about. We'll talk about the main card and then 1 or 2 fights probably on the prelims. But that's pretty much about it. So you have, what is this one called? 68?
Vegas 68.
UFC 68, Fight Night 68. Vegas 68. Lewis versus Spivak. Spivak, not Spivak. Spivak is what Laura Senko was saying. And I'll listen to Laura Senko any day. God damn it. I thought she did a fantastic job, by the way, on the commentary. She did fantastic. Yeah. I thought it was kind of funny because I tuned in. I was like, hey, who's that? Oh shit, that's right. It's Laura tonight. That's right. So good for her, man. I'm happy for her. John Spivak versus Spivak versus Lewis.
But is it not weird?
It was. It was weird.
Not weird.
It was weird.
Well, but it's also weird that I have 2 guys from England in this, John Gooden and Bisping, and then we've got Laura. It was like, okay, this is a completely different commentary team than you would expect, but they did a great job.
I agree.
She did a really good
Spivak versus Lewis. Lewis on a skid, I think, of 5 fights now, or 4 fights, 4-fight losing streak. I think it's
5?
4. I think it might be 4-fight losing streak.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. When I look at how Spivak got this fight to the ground, and the rest is history. Beautifully done. What he did was, and I don't understand why fighters don't use this more, because I use this thing all the time. I didn't have to use it so much in my fight as much as I use it in the gym. And I would do this to Habib. I would do it to John Fitch. I would do it to Koscheck. I would do it to Swick all the time. It's as soon as you punch and you get to the clinch, right away pull on the lat and try to hit that foot sweep. It breaks their balance. And then if they go to posture back up, you can either just pummel back inside and push them away if you're trying to escape. Or you can do what Spivak did, and he just stepped across on the other side. When they go to fight and stand back up straight, you step across, go far side hip toss. Beautifully done. And we've seen guys try to throw Derek Lewis before. It didn't work out for them. This guy, he made it look easy when he did that toss.
Oh, dude! As soon as he loaded him up on the hip, it was like, he's going for a ride.
Yeah, I mean, he was up and down and with Derek
done.
Lewis left and right. Derek just needs to work on his wrestling in terms of how he gets back up, how he doesn't get back up, all these things. I mean, every time he fell, I saw a couple of times he fell directly on his face. I was like, oof, that didn't look good. So when I look at this fight, I expected more out of Derek, coming in shape, looking lean, looking a lot better. But the end result is, if you don't know how to wrestle, man, you're going to have a hard time. And to think, the guys like Curtis Blades, guys like John Jones, these guys are coming in the heavyweight division. You've got Moldavsky who can wrestle. You've got Brian Bader who can wrestle. The heavyweight divisions has never been stacked with good wrestlers. And the ones that have been good wrestlers have normally been the champ.
Have done
well or been the champ.
They've normally done very well.
Kane, DC, I think any guys that can wrestle and wrestle well, in the heavyweight division, they have a really good chance of becoming champs. We'll see.
Yeah. I looked at this fight and I give it up for Derek in the fact that, look, he worked. He kept working to get back to his feet. He didn't understand about, look, you can get back to your feet, but you got to break the hands apart, Josh. You can't sit there and think that I'm going to get back up and now I don't work the hands. You're going to end up going for that mat return, and Sergey did it, 7-8 times? 7-8 mat returns, and it's like that wears you out, especially when you're a heavyweight like Derek. And when he finally tried to turn to, because of, to get himself in a position, arm was right in place right away, arm triangle. It was tight. Hey, anybody can get choked. But I feel bad for Derek, but this is honestly, I ate shit saying that I looked at Derek as a gatekeeper. How many, how long ago? I said, at this point, I don't see Derek Lewis working himself back to a championship fight. I just don't think that's going to happen. He's more the gatekeeper.
You know what I look at, though?
I think you're really in that position.
There's a lot of guys that don't have it in them, a title run in them more than once. And it's like it's so anticlimactic. What they do is they work so hard to get there. They get to the title shot. They get the title shot. They come up short. They don't have it in them to get back. Or even the ones that have won it, and then they lose it, and then they don't have it in them to run it back. I mean, you have to think. I mean, like, John, it took me a long time to get refocused after the UFC, when I fought Yves Edwards. I was supposed to be for the lightweight title. It should have been. And it should have been. I was the number 1 guy in the world at the time. He was number 2. And I didn't fight smart, and I'm not taking anything away from him. I didn't fight smart in that fight because I was a little upset at the fact, like, they kept telling me, yeah, this might be for the title. And then eventually that was the last fight in the lightweight division ever. And for like those 3 years, 3 or 4 years, I think, is they got rid of the division. It was a long time. And then they brought the division back. But that should have been for the title. It took me that long to get remotivated to really make another drive for another title run. I just didn't have it. I would rather, I was like, you know what? I've already been there. I've done that. I thought I was already done. I was young. And I was telling myself, you've already been to the top. You don't need to go back. And there was a lot of conversations. I think as a fighter, fans, you guys need to understand, I had a lot of conversations with myself. I had to look at myself in the mirror and go, hey, you got this. Why are you doing that? That's 1. Do you still want it? That's 2. And you got this. Once I decided that I wanted it, I could do it. It just, there was moments where I don't want this anymore. And I was young, like 28, 29, 31. Like I've done all, I'm good. Like I started counting my chickens before they hatched. Kind of situation, like, I've done it all. I'm the man. I've done it all. No, you haven't done shit, buddy. And I think with Derek Lewis, right, and other fighters that have got there, they didn't get it. It takes a while to settle back in and go, okay, look, do I still want to keep doing this? Do I really want to keep putting more effort in this? Am I still learning? Do I need to learn more? What do I need to learn to fix it? Until he makes that adjustment, he will be the gatekeeper. He needs to learn how to wrestle, and and he needs to work on his cardio. But he needs to learn how to wrestle. That's the biggest thing.
Well, I think he has worked on his wrestling, and I think he's worked on his wrestling in the fact of a guy shooting into his legs, being able to sprawl, making his hips heavy, stonewalling guys. I think he's learned how to do those things. But those are the types of takedowns now most guys aren't going to, that's not their go-to takedowns. You're seeing a ton of guys with the foot sweeps. You're seeing guys now using hip tosses and, Tayatoshi and Sotogari and Haragosh and all these different types of
I don't know
judo
what any of
throws
those fucking things are that you just said, okay?
Well, but all these different types of throws that are there when someone is in a position a little bit off balance, doesn't understand what's coming. And, as long as you understand what you're doing, they're going to go for a ride. And he, like anyone, you want to continue on in the sport, you must always be learning. Always.
I agree. Devin Clark versus Woon Jung.
It was a good performance by Clark. He's a good wrestler. strong.
He looks
strong
really
lower
strong.
body, huge legs, and Jung he's a guy, he's tough. He comes after you. I thought that Clark fought smart. He mitigated what Jung could do throughout the fight, and just systematically, he won rounds. And when you're winning, doing what he did, you win those rounds, you're going to win the fight unless Jung has a big one. Yep. So I thought Devin Clark actually performed very well. It's like sometimes we watch Devin and it's like he gets run over almost. And it's like, damn, I didn't think a guy was going to run him over like that. And then he has this kind of fight. And I go,
well, this was a tough fight though for him.
Yeah,
this wasn't
good.
A walkthrough fight. It was a tough fight for him. He had to work for some positions.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he's fighting a tough dude. Jung's
he
good.
Was good. He was good. Devin's got to learn when to conserve his energy and when to go hard. He hasn't quite figured that out, and that is a big portion of guys for them to have success. John Jones knows when I can just walk you down and just pick you apart and set the pace. And John knows okay, I've already established that I'm hitting you hard. I've already established that I can use my push kick. Now I can take a step back and get my breather until I'm ready to attack again. John Jones is that guy who is he knows when to step back and take his breather. He knows when to dominate the top position and just chill and rest and make you carry his weight. He knows all of those things. Devin Clark needs to focus on working on that in the gym. Learning when to pace yourself, learning when to pick it up, learning when to step back and get your breath, learning when to rest. Never rest in a position that you don't have the dominant control in. So if you can't do that, then don't rest. That's your time to keep working and keep scrambling. So I didn't see that in him, and I think that's why he tends to look like he's getting tired and then becomes vulnerable as the fight goes on. It was a good win for him, but it wasn't the most beautiful win, and Jung is very tough. But overall, it was a good fight. I actually enjoyed the fight.
It was good, very competitive.
The fight that I wasn't too high on was, and I was high on it going into it, was
it did not
Tybura versus Blagoy. I expected more out of Blagoy, to be honest. Just wasn't there. He also too physically he looks old. He moved
slow.
And he looked a lot older in this fight. He just looked like everything was laboring to get it there. It was and then he did a couple good shots to the body, but then that was about it. And I didn't realize how much bigger Tybura is. Height-wise, reach-wise, all of those things. So good on him. Choi and Nelson was a pretty good fight, but it ended up being a draw.
Got a draw because of a point deduction. And do you agree with the point deduction?
No.
Why?
I don't care. I don't care. I thought it was a good fight, though.
Do you remember what it was for?
I don't remember what it was for.
No.
Because as soon as the foul was committed, I fast forwarded through it. That's why.
No.
We didn't have much time to watch.
It was a headbutt, and he used his head, and you can't do it, man. And it was the right thing to do. Unfortunately, that was the reason it ends up being a draw. But that's Choi had a fight that he should have won, that he gave away. Don't be stupid.
I got it. Let me see. Okay, we got Fugit. Is how you say? Is how you say it? Adam Fugit versus Yasakure. Kinoshita. Okay. What's your thoughts?
Dude, again, using ground and pound, use big elbows. I always say, if you get someone in position, don't just sit there and throw punches. Elbows. Elbows create problems for referees, because elbows you hear. You can actually feel it through the flooring of the octagon or the cage. You actually feel it if you're the referee, and you see the reaction of the fighter, and they're quicker to stop fights based upon you going towards the elbows than you ever doing punches. Just the truth.
I don't know how you say his last name. Fugit. He just fucking ate up that head kick, though. And it looked like Kinoshita or whatever was going to be, it looked like he was going to be dominating this fight when it was on the feet. He took some shots and delivered big shots. He threw that head kick, rocked Fugit. He ate it. But then when they hit the ground, Kinoshita had no answer for the grappling. None.
No answer at all. But this is where you look at, Fugit, you go, smart. Look at you. You were starting to really fall behind in the stand-up. I mean, you were doing fine in aspects of it, but the better shots were coming from your opponent. You weren't landing the good shots, and it was just starting to add up. You got to change. You got to change the momentum. You got to change the fight up, and that's what he did by taking the ground. It was obvious that his skill set there was better than Kinoshita's. So that's the way you're supposed to fight. Put the fight where you're strong and your opponent is weak.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other fights on here you want to talk about? I actually want to talk about this one more. The Nakamura and Kazama fight. This Nakamura kid, he doesn't give a shit. He just walked down and took shots, delivered shots, very accurate. I never heard of this kid, but I was very impressed. I look for him. I know he's going to have a hard time with guys that can take shots and deliver them back, But I got to be honest, John. I was very impressed with the way he was composed, but he put the pressure, that constant pressure. I know it didn't get out of the first round, but he was slipping off line a little bit and landing hard shots. He looked good, looked really good. So
Yeah, could you imagine him against a guy like Giannis?
Yeah. I mean, I think he needs a little bit more he has a little bit ways to go.
Oh yeah,
but this is I'm encouraged when I see young kids like this come up. I'm excited when they know they look. I've got power. I've got good stand up, and let it fly. I don't know how he is on the ground because we didn't see it, but on the feet he was very accurate and he was willing to take a shot to give a shot. So. All right, well, that's going to wrap up our UFC, 68 is what it was? UFC Fight Night.
68 from the Apex in Las Vegas.
All right. And not John, Dave, what do you got for us, man? Any news?
Yeah, I know we talked about it a little bit on the live, but let's just get some, we on the podcast, we can riff a little bit more. So let's get some thoughts on this Chandler McGregor thing, especially after Tony had tweeted that he was expecting to get this tough endeavor, and obviously that didn't happen. So what do you guys think about this? 170, by the way.
Oh, it is 170.
I'm letting you.
It's at 170.
Absolutely. Connor's not getting down to 155.
And Michael will chase the money. He's a dog like that. He'll chase the money. It doesn't matter where it goes. He'll chase it.
Yep.
You never know, man. You never know. Maybe Michael will be better at 170. The weight, he cuts a lot of weight. He cuts a lot of weight. I mean, I've seen,
but he does it well.
Yeah, he does.
But he does it well.
His whole life. Connor at 170, and we had a chance to catch up with Dustin Poirier, and he talked about he thought Connor would probably be able to take him because Chandler's very hittable, which is very correct. Chandler is hittable, yes. and Chandler also likes to get into a dogfight. But at a point though with Chandler, now everyone knows that I've said he's the dumbest fight IQ fighter in the world, but for this one fight. You think he'll get it together?
No. I would love to think so. Michael has that, for whatever reason, in his mind. It's more important to be exciting than it is to win. And in this fight right here, it's the dumbest idea ever. Because if you get the win, what does that mean? You probably get a second one, which means you can do what Dustin Poirier did when he got the win in the second fight that he and Conor had is, you want me to fight him again? Good. Let's talk about how much we're going to make now. And you put yourself in a position to make great money because Conor brings big money. And if Michael Chandler was smart, he would work on his wrestling. He would just hone it to a fine edge and be able to put pressure and take the blueprint that you saw from Khabib and use that blueprint to beat Conor and get that win. And then you want to be exciting in the rematch, go ahead. I don't care. But you're talking about retirement money.
Well, look, it's a lot for these fighters. I know several other fighters that were offered this deal as well. they were offered to be the coaches there. But they don't make it very enticing. They don't give cars anymore at the end. And, but they're offering you, we'll give you $50,000. Well, it's $50,000 for 6 weeks worth of work, 6 to 8 weeks worth of filming. And you're away from home. Most of these fighters have kids. They got a wife. And if they've got kids that are in school, you can't bring them with you. So, sure, you can fly home on the weekend, but I believe you got to fly home on your own dime. Yeah.
You do.
So if you're the coach, you're like, man, it's got to work around what you're looking at, what your life schedule is. And we know that I've known that some of the other guys that were offered, like, it wasn't worth it, man. 6 weeks away to make $50,000. And I can't fly home really on the weekends because there is some filming they want to do. Normally they're at events, whether it's like concerts or whether it's, whatever, there's always events in Vegas. So let's just, anything. But it's a long time to be away. It didn't matter wherever Conor wanted to fight, Chandler was going to follow. If you want to fight at 70,
sure.
If you want to fight at 85, I'll fight you there too. Chandler's chasing the money, which is whatever. I get it. Yes. I understand. Like, you're not going to do this forever.
But hold on.
There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Okay. Nothing. I'm not complaining about that. No.
Okay.
I agree with you on he needs to get this win. He needs to get this win because that second fight will be more valuable. Way more valuable. But also, too, though, John, what I get nervous about is that if he does win the first fight, is Conor even a draw anymore? I know he'll always be a draw, but is he a draw that's going to draw 1 million, 1.2 million in pay-per-view buys?
Yeah. Let's
drop
just be
4
honest,
in a row.
Okay.
Drop 3 or 4 in a row now.
There's people that hate Conor. There's people that love Conor. All right. There's people that, they look at Conor as
two in a row.
He's the best in the sport.
2 in a row.
They look at him as he is the best in the sport. Now, is he? We both know no. Okay, but that's what people believe. And so when they see his name up there and there's a fight that they can watch and it's got Conor McGregor, that will make some of those people tune into that fight. He will always be able to draw money unless he does something so, outlandish.
He has. Johnny has done. He's thrown a fucking truck, a wheel truck through a bus window. I mean, there was that.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing.
He's been arrested for.
I'm not saying it was a smart thing, but it's really not a big thing.
Yeah. But so he's got 2 losses in a row against Dustin. I forgot about the Cerrone fight. I thought there could be within the 2 Dustin fights, but he's got the win over Donald. But do you agree with Dustin? Because we interviewed Dustin this weekend, and that's up on our channel as well. So if you guys want to check out that interview, but do you agree with him that he's going to lean more towards Conor because Conor, with the timing, with the boxing, and how hittable Michael Chandler is, he's going to lean more that way?
Yeah, I agree with him. Based upon knowing how Michael fights and what I believe he's gonna do, and then what Conor has. I think Conor has lost a little bit of that speed and timing that he had. You take a look, and Dustin said all the things that I've said before. He goes, look, he's longer than people realize. I've said that. He will sit in a range where his opponent doesn't think that he's within range, and Conor will prove, yes, you are. He's long. He extends well, and he's always in balance as he does it, and his timing is outstanding. And when you talk about having good timing, that makes you fast. He's not the you talk about pure speed of hands and things like that. There's a lot of guys that have faster hands, but it's the timing and the control of the distance that Conor has that makes him very difficult. And at one time, look at when he fought Eddie Alvarez, he was at the pinnacle of his ability to control distance and have impeccable timing. You look at what he did in that fight, it was like, just picture perfect. It was poetry, and can he bring that back? Yeah, he can. The guys that are going to give Conor trouble are guys that step within that range. All right. Guys that Dustin, a guy that will step within that and bring that fight into that boxing range, that Conor now can't control that distance where he's not getting hit. He's going to have to take some to give some. Michael Chandler, as a fighter, when you watch him, he's an explosive fighter, but he lunges in. He takes these big movements, and his feet move to get him inside, then to try to get him outside. He doesn't stay inside. He wants to come in, do damage, and bounce out. And that's not a good idea in fighting Conor.
Yeah, I want to see how much Conor's going to be able to utilize his kicks also, because the way also to get Michael Chandler to stop lunging in is to take out his calf. He's got like really lean legs. I don't want to call them chicken legs, but he's got very lean legs. And he doesn't absorb calf kicks very.
He's got strong legs.
So he doesn't absorb calf kicks very well.
Calf kicks tend to have a problem.
A lot of fighters have problems with them. I get that. But you give him one or two good ones, he's not the same fighter anymore. He starts switching his stance, and he's not the same fighter when he switches his stance because he doesn't have a lot of combinations off of that. So he's really somebody that he's extremely hittable, but he's also extremely beatable if you can figure out that little bit of a recipe right there.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for us there, Dave?
Yeah, let's get thoughts here on the Sean O'Malley deal. He just signed a new 8-fight deal, and you guys have talked a bit about fighters shouldn't be signing those, more than those 4-fight deals. Sean O'Malley comes out and says he signed an 8-fight deal. Here's his quote: "Even if I fight Aljo next, I don't get pay-per-view points. That was something I talked about in the negotiations. I tried to get it. Pay-per-view points, not being the champ, but it didn't fly. But I will say I did re-sign with the UFC, a very gracious contract that I'm proud of. I offered that. I asked for this. They said no. They said yes. I said well. They said ha. A bunch of stuff. I'm very happy with it, and I truly don't think any manager that I could have went in there and got me what I got.
Well, even if you did get what you thought maybe would have been more, it would only cover their percentage, so it doesn't matter. Like if you get a manager, right, and you go in there, you're only going to get a little bit more, and it barely covers their percentage. So there's no point of having a manager if you're going to fight for the UFC. I'm strong on that deal. I'm strong on that stance. Now the benefit of having a manager is so you don't actually have to have a bad relationship with Dana White. Let your manager have one. That's the benefit of having because you are. Fighters, just like most athletes, when they represent themselves. Lamar Jackson's going through it right now with the Baltimore Ravens.
Very hard to represent
because
yourself.
You honestly believe that you are worth a lot more. And
when someone tells you you're not,
your feelings get hurt.
It hurts.
Your feelings get hurt.
Yeah.
But you also, I've done a lot of my own negotiations. Through Bob Cook and I, we've talked, but like in terms of this is what I want, and you just come back and tell me what they're willing to go, and then we'll meet in the middle. I've never try to outpunt the coverage and just be like, you know what, I want this, I'm fighting for this. You never develop strong relationships with your promoter by doing that. That's why I think now I still work for Bellator. That's why I still work with Scott Coker, is because we had such a good relationship. When I came from the UFC to Bellator, my negotiations were very simple. Tell me what you're willing to pay me. Okay, well, I want this, and this then. Okay, well, I can do that. All right, well, then let's go. Like, that's the great thing about negotiating. Like with Chris Cyborg, when she originally negotiated her first contract she came back with a really astronomical amount of money, number that she wanted. And Coker came back and said, look, this is what I'm willing to do. Take it or leave it. I'm not going to, you give me anything higher than this, we can tweak it here and there. Like, it's not just always about the money. It's about, hey, I can get you a Monster sponsorship, or hey, I can get you this sponsorship. I can add these on there as well, as long as you're my champion, or as long as you're doing my press stuff, or and I can get you appearances in some certain places and get you paid on those as well. So there's ways to sweeten the pot without it always being included into your fight purse. So there's other avenues. That's right. Sean talking about, I didn't get the pay-per-view points because I'm not the champion. I get it. I understand. But then they can also say, yeah, but you know what? We've got Monster. We've got this new Prime thing, hydration drink.
Yeah, that one's not going to go
That's
over
gonna
real
play out
good.
here pretty soon.
Well, I'll tell you. Take a look at that one. I'm like,
I wouldn't be surprised if Monster sues them in their contract.
Something's going to happen because there. And here's the problem. I look at that. Okay, look,
Right.
Monster is a very big company with a lot of smart people that are their lawyers and stuff. They're never going to sign a contract that allows the UFC to have another energy drink.
No, I agree.
Now they can have another drink, but not an energy drink. Now that Prime, there's two different varieties of it.
Yep.
A hydration and an energy. And I'm like, who didn't look at this? Who's the one that decided to do this without actually taking a look at this and going, this might not be a good idea. We might not be able to do this. It's like, that's not a good one. But
Dave, look up the net worth of Monster Energy drink.
oh man,
I want to say it's about
That's a
100.
lot.
What is it worth? Probably about 80 billion.
oh, 80 billion?
No.
No.
53
billion.
53
Yeah,
billion.
the UFC is
Jesus.
4 billion, you guys. Go ahead and
Well,
let's see whose lawyers have a bigger pissing.
Let's say it's 5 billion now.
Let's see whose lawyers have bigger pissing pot.
Let's see who wins this
Yeah.
pissing contest.
I'm gonna be honest. Like this, as soon as that deal was signed, I go, "Is Monster out? Like, what's going on?"
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
No, we had some conversation.
That's exactly what I thought.
54.247 billion.
Let's be honest.
Jesus.
The UFC would like to do this in reverse too, where they'll sign the deal with Monster, we'll say, and say, "Look, you cannot basically sponsor any other mixed martial arts.
They've tried, John.
Any other mixed martial arts promotions. I know they tried." And Monster said, "You're not telling us what we're doing. You want to do a deal? We'll do deals with who we want. We want to do a deal with you." And the UFC said, "Okay, we're not going to get
No,
it."
because Monster is out to sponsor extreme sports. MMA is considered an extreme sport. Now I know they sponsor other events and other shows and other whatever things that are not extreme sports, but they're like, no, we're sponsoring the sport of MMA. That's why I love Monster for. That they're out there sponsoring all the events they possibly can that have to do with MMA, not just the UFC. There you go, buddy. There you go.
What?
And so it's just one of those things, man. It's a weird vibe that I'm getting when you start seeing that. Like, Dana's just doing whatever the fuck he wants right now. I don't think this deal would have went through had Lorenzo or Frank been around. They would have been like, let's not piss off. Let's keep the peace right now. Let's keep the peace right now. Maybe I'm wrong.
But getting back on Sean O'Malley, look, as long as Sean O'Malley's happy with his contract, great. The one thing that I would suggest to most fighters, and there's no reason for the 8-fight contract.
Yeah.
Guys, you're not looking at this in a logical fashion, because if you are doing well, the 8-fight contract doesn't mean anything. And eventually, somewhere, if you're doing well, after 4 fights, that 8-fight contract that you have, you're not going to be happy with those last 4 fights.
Nope.
Now you're going to want more. Where if you did a 4-fight deal and you win, sometimes you got to bet on yourself. But you're going to end up with more doing that 4-fight deal, because it's not about security, because they can cut you at any time. All right, it's a closed end where you can't get rid of them, but they can get rid of you. And so I understand being happy with the deal. I'm glad he's happy with his numbers. But for other fighters, if you're looking at the 8 fights, man, I think you're better off 4, maybe 6 at the most. When you go into those 8 and 10s, I think you're going too far, because eventually down the road, if you're winning, you're gonna look at what you're making in that 5th, 6th, 7th fight, and you're gonna be going, I'm not happy with it, and you're gonna want to renegotiate. When it's on you. You're the one that decided to sign that 8-fight. You should fight it out.
When I came over from Strikeforce, they tried to sign me to an 8-fight deal. I told them,
I don't blame them. It's a smart move for them.
I said, absolutely not. We'll do 4. And they were like, and they hummed and hawed. I was like, well, then I'll just not come. Like, I'm fine with not going. I was on my last fight of my contract, so I was like, I'm good. And they're like, no, we were trying to re-up you. We want to pay you more. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to do 8 fights. So I was like, oh, I'll just figure it out. There's no reason for the 8-fight deal, John. I agree with you. Now, you see it all the time in other sports where these guys sign like a 10-year deal. Like Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year deal. You know,
That's different.
It is different, but it isn't different because in 5 years, the value of him, if he wins another Super Bowl or two, it's going to be higher than it was. It's going to be higher than it was. And also, too, they raise the salary cap every 2 or 3 years. They raise the salary cap.
Yeah, but see, understand this. In that, when Patrick Mahomes is signing that, there's a certain part of it that is a guarantee.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
No, not the whole thing, but there's a part of it. And even if he gets hurt, he's getting that money. If you don't fight the fight, you're not getting the money.
You're right. If you don't fight the fight, you're not getting the money. But there have been fighters that have been able to negotiate it. Maybe he should, I don't know if he did or not, was able to negotiate a no-cut clause. Gilbert Melendez, when he went over to the UFC, he signed a 10-fight deal, but they couldn't cut him until after 8 fights. There's a no-cut clause. I want to make sure that I'm guaranteed this amount of money. And he was happy with that contract. And so he went over there. I mean, he had 8 fights there, and then they were able to release him or cut him whenever they wanted to after that. So, but it's after the 8 fights is what I believe it was. And he got paid pretty good money for those fights. Good for him. But that's a long time, man. Not a lot of fighters have that negotiation or that power to negotiate a no-cut clause.
Well, that's
Sean
true,
does.
but you also have to understand the way that Gilbert Melendez got that was he signed not a deal, but he got an offer from Bellator, and there was a no cut in that. So they had to say, well, we'll match that, and that's where he got it.
Can you imagine though? We would have seen Michael Chandler, Will Brooks, Gilbert Melendez. We would have seen those fights had he went over there.
Been great,
man. Would love to have seen that. Would love to have seen that because I mean him and because Gilbert and Chandler, not Gilbert. Gilbert and Chandler would have been a great fight.
Brooks?
Gilbert and Chandler would have been a great fight. The two of them, the wrestling takedown defense, the boxing, the combinations back together. That would have been a great fight, man. Awesome. All right, well, I want to thank you guys so much for listening to us, supporting us. And make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up and the notification bell because we drop shows all the time. Look, we're doing another one right now after we just did one yesterday. And we did a bunch of interviews throughout the week.
Many?
So go back. I said 15, which was a big fucking lie. But it was somewhere around like 5 or 6. But I've been known to exaggerate a little bit. At least that's what the ladies say. All right, my man. Well, hey, man, go to weighingInMerch.com. Pick up some of our apparel there. Got some new designs that are up there and hoodies and all the other types of sweatshirts that we have available. So check it all out. And hats are on full display on the new website. So weighingInMerch.com. Hit that subscribe button, guys. Thank you guys so much. And Big John, take us away.
Hey, tune in Tuesday because the Punk and I will be getting after the upcoming pay-per-view fight between this guy named Islam Makhachev against Alexander Volkanovski, the man, the myth, the legend, the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
Soon to be Islam.
We're going to talk about that.
Does it go out of 3 rounds?
I don't
answer
so.
till Tuesday.
I think
Dave, don't. I'm screwing this fucking dog here. You shut the fuck up.
He's
and
trying to screw the pooch.
You just sit there and hold the tail up, buddy. I'm doing this. Okay. Does it go out of 3 rounds, John?
Does it go past 3 rounds? Does it hit the championship rounds?
Okay.
I don't think so.
The next thing is, did you see his interview with Daniel? Him and Vulcan and Islam? And Islam
No,
has
I did not.
some of the greatest lines. People need to learn to appreciate his sense of humor. He's like, brother, Australia, they don't have wrestling. It's like they don't even have wrestling. And then Volk says that he was on the national team for wrestling. He's like, what wrestling? This is Australia. Australia has no wrestling. He's just so great, man. So great.
Well,
I love it.
You know what? It's nice that at least that you know who Islam is because there's this guy named Dana that forgot his name. Did you see that one? It's like you forgot the name of your champion. Okay,
Not only your champion, but your number 2 pound for pound guy.
Yeah, well, that was funny. But
Well, he's got a
look,
whole
he's
new power slap
53.
What'd
roster.
you say?
he's
What'd you
53.
I said he's got a whole new power slap roster to remember now, so you just got to cut him some slack.
Yeah, that power slap. Okay. Well, for everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. We hope you have enjoyed all the stuff that we put out during Bellator 290, all the interviews and everything. Go check them out if you haven't, and we will see you.